The meeting not started.
I know, but before, do I want to start the video?
It doesn't even.
Yeah. I click it.
You've already done that.
Yeah, but so this would have came up before and it didn't show me.
I don't know what.
Oh, well, they'll come up. Come on. Okay.
When the meeting. Yeah, we'll see it.
Okay.
And Mr. Munson?
Yes.
I just wanted to let you know I added, I sent you an email that shows the plat.
Did you send it directly to me or to Jesse?
did.
Or?
I
Okay.
sent it to you about 15 minutes, 20 minutes ago.
Oh,
Just,
okay, so
well, just in case there's any
let's see.
question about the plat, it really doesn't matter, but
Mhm.
since there seemed to be so many questions last time, I want to make sure I avoid any. in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah, fair enough. I'm not seeing the email.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it could still be floating around the city server or
Yeah, well, okay.
but I can keep an eye out for it though.
Let me double check it and get stuck in my outbox. Nope,
Yeah.
nope, it
Some,
says it went through.
sometimes people try and add an extra N to my last name too, which makes emailing tricky, but
Right, huh.
yeah, I get. Well, hang on, let me do send receive. I'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
'Cause
Anyway, the only reason, I mean, it's on the city permit portal under my address, 1448. It was submitted way back last year when the plat was done. But just so
Okay,
that,
gotcha.
we can reference it. Oh, yeah, it came through at 10:58 on my end to you.
Hmm.
So, yeah. But yeah.
Okay, let's. How weird. Yeah, I don't know if your servers at the corp are any different than ours, but ours can take a little while to come through sometimes. So I'll keep an eye out for it. But yeah, if it comes up, we can
Okay, it's
try and figure it out then. But
nothing
hopefully,
nothing to do with the court. I don't work for them anymore. I retired in January of 20.
oh, gotcha. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I don't work for the city anymore. It's a beautiful feeling, by the way.
Someday. All right, we're just waiting for a few more committee members to show up, and then we get started here.
Yeah.
If we have some applicants here, still waiting on a few committee members, but I can run through our preamble and procedures and policies that I'm sure nobody ever gets sick of hearing. So this is the August 17th Ohio City Design Review Committee meeting. Doug Wall, chair. Going over the virtual meeting regulations and procedures. The meeting shall be conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Recusal due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the start of any presentation. Committee members will then leave the meeting for the duration of the case discussion. No presentation submissions will be accepted after the deadline. The chair will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call of the committee. The administrator will introduce the first project and provide some background information if applicable. The meeting will then be turned over to the applicant to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the committee. Once the presentation is concluded, the administrator will read any received public comments. The committee will then begin deliberations and project review. Please use the raised hand feature if you'd like to speak. After deliberations and review concludes, the committee will render its recommendation and vote. After the vote, the applicants may leave the meeting and the administrator will introduce the next project. All projects will follow the same format until all projects are heard by the committee. Once all projects are heard, the chair will call for any committee/administrator reports. After the reports have been heard, the chair will adjourn the meeting. Regards to community comments, any and all community members may provide their written comments, thoughts, or questions regarding projects presented to the committee for review and approval. Community members may also telephone their comments or questions to the committee administrator, which is myself. All comments, thoughts, or questions must be submitted to the committee administrator no later than 48 hours before the start of the meeting. So again, submissions can be made through email, phone, or mail, or dropping things off here at City Hall. Public comment or submissions made after the deadline will not be heard by the committee. Public comment will be collected by Landmark staff and sent to the committee members for review prior to the scheduled meeting. Staff will summarize the received comments. The applicant of the project is under no obligation to answer any community questions. Community members are invited to attend the design review meetings, but there will be no public comment period. As a reminder, all projects follow the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. All projects are being considered for the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. All projects are considered on a case-by-case basis. Finally, the Ohio City Design Review Committee is advisory to the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. Recommendations by this committee are not final actions. Depending on the scope of the project, submissions may be approved administratively or will need to be reviewed by the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. Projects will be scheduled at the next available commission meeting after an action is taken. All right, with all that out of the way, it looks like it looks like we have quorum, Mr. Chair. So if you want to call things to order, I can.
All right, thank you, Dan. Let's call this meeting of the Ohio City Design Review Committee to order. Dan, please call the first item.
Well, I'm going to do a roll call real quick first, if that's all right. Mr. Frandorf?
Here.
Ms. Lan?
Here.
Mr. Lozier?
Here.
Ms. Marinucci?
Here.
Mr. Talley? And Mr. Wall?
Here.
And just wanted to note to the committee members at its August 10th Landmarks Commission meeting last week, Christopher Persons was appointed to the Ohio City Design Review Committee. So I don't see him here today, but yeah, I'm sure he'll be joining us, at an upcoming meeting, and you'll all get to meet him then. So yes. With all that out of the way, called to order. The first case is case OC 23-35, the Ohio City Farm at 1500 Franklin Boulevard. You guys saw this as a concept on July 6th. They're proposing the construction of a new farm market building. So I believe we have Magdalena Young here from Young Design Studio, and then Patrick, who I guess runs the farm.
And then
So-
Dan, for the record, I am recusing again on this project.
All right, thank you. So yeah, Magdalena, Patrick, if you guys just want to walk through, let me know when you want me to advance slides, or I can try and keep up as you go.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Patrick, did you have any updates you wanted to give, or just kind of a little mini overview? I think, most people are familiar with the project now, but we can go through.
Sure, yeah, I can do a 30-second overview. So this is the kind of infrastructure plan for our new international farmers market that we based on the Ohio City Farm, right at the kind of offset from the entranceway of where the gate currently is. Roughly 4,000 square feet, with the idea that this will be a way to create new jobs, have vendor stalls, allow us to, for the first time ever, to grow through the winter time, to be able to wash and pack, and give our farmers also for the first time an indoor plumbing, a break room, locker room facilities, as well as having covered space for our tours and education programs that we currently do not have. So this is kind of the next phase of the project. It is, as we know, owned by CMHA. We have a new 10-year lease executed on the property, which is the longest lease that CMHA is approved by their board to give, with indications that it will be a continuation from there. We are well on the way to raising all of the capital for this project, and probably will have it wrapped up in the next several months. So really excited to have this in front of you all again. And I'll leave it to Maggie, who actually knows what she's talking about when we come to these things. And I'll be here for any other clarification questions.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Yes, so it's going to be pretty much just a little further detail on what we presented last time. So again, here's the kind of the project overview location. If you could go to the next slide, please. So zooming in, as Patrick mentioned, we are keeping this, just to the east of that existing farm path that keeps the existing hoop houses in place. And it really is just the best location as far as where utilities are on site as well. Next slide, please. So here's those existing context photos of the site. And we can kind of talk further about this. We have a landscaping plan for review, but we're keeping the majority of these trees. We'll be removing the ones that are closest to the building, but basically replacing them with new trees after the construction is completed. Next slide, please. Again, some kind of the architectural context to the site. Next slide. And again, this is that existing gate feature. The center photo on the top is really looking straight at where that building is going to be. Next slide. Okay, so we have some good news on the actual site plan here, which was kind of twofold. One, first was we worked with the zoning department and actually clarified that kind of the online mapping of the setback in that area was just mislabeled, and so it's actually only a 5-foot setback from the property line in this area. And then in addition, the property line jogs a little bit as the street narrows, kind of where our building is. So long story short, the existing location that we proposed last time is actually acceptable without any variance. We're allowed to build the building in line with that existing fence. So that is our plan. We did not change it at all. We just updated and kind of clarified the existing conditions of the property line and setback. And then, as I mentioned, we're taking out a couple trees there, and then we're going to be replacing those with some new trees and some plantings at the building. So we have a landscape plan further down the presentation. Next slide, please. This is the floor plan for the space. Again, hasn't changed. That area that, as Patrick mentioned, is going to be kind of a secondary phase of construction is the bottom left corner of the plan. So that would be the southwest corner of the building. And kind of as we get to the 3D renderings, I can clarify how that's going to look. But basically the intent is to build kind of, there's that wall in front of the CSA pickup, and just build a temporary wall in line with that to, yep, exactly, thank you, to enclose the market hall. So the market hall will be about 2/3 of its final size. And the idea is to build that temporary wall and do an artist's mural on it or something to activate it in the meantime until the final construction of the curtain wall, or of the storefront. Next slide, please. Here's the exterior elevations. We've added some notes as to the actual materiality of the building. So the kind of main overview is that there'll be storefront in the future, and all the windows will be aluminum storefront, black finish. We are proposing 2 different kind of rib profiles for the metal siding, in addition to being 2 colors. And again, that's kind of in keeping with what the renderings show, and we have further materiality details further down. And then the wood trusses will be built such that they are acceptable to be exposed to the weather. So rather than being kind of the metal plate that you see in like residential construction or something like that, they'll actually be fastened differently so that they're able to be exposed to the weather, and then they will be sealed with a UV protectant and kind of mold repellent as well, just to make them last as long as possible. Same for the exposed kind of wood decking on the underside of the roof there. That will be protected as well. Being that it's kind of shaded, I think that will be less susceptible to weather as well. Next slide, please. And also the roofing will be a standing seam metal roof throughout. Next slide. So here's those 3D rendered views. Again, this corner kind of closest to us in this view, that glass is what will be the second phase of construction. So that colorful wall that you see through the glass will extend down to the ground, and that will be kind of what will be completed at this phase. So it'll basically look like that open area in the middle. So it'll be covered. They'll be able to have their nice events and whatnot in the meantime, and then really get some excitement and hopefully more fundraising for the project to complete this corner. Next slide, please. There's that straight on view. And those, as you look through that covered area, those are two big garage door to allow for the CSA pickup. So that's really going to be a hub of activity during the summer for sure. Next slide, please. A little bit of a backed up view. And again, this doesn't show the full context of the fence, but the existing fence line aligns with the face of the building. Next slide, please. Here's our proposed landscaping plan. So proposing 3 new trees in place of the 2 that are being removed, and then just some kind of foundation plantings at the building face to soften it a bit as well. Next slide, please. Further details on those plantings. Next slide. And then just a little further detail on the materiality of the building. So there's the aluminum storefront. We'd plan on a black anodized finish on that, and the overhead doors to match. The cable railing that kind of gives a little bit of security to that open plaza area would be an aluminum system with cable. The metal siding, there's the 2 profiles, so kind of a tighter box, and then one with a bit more open flat area as well in a dark charcoal and a really kind of pale gray color. The roof is intended to be a dark charcoal. And then there's kind of an example of the exposed wood structure as well with the sealer. The next slide, please. We have really limited lighting on this project. Again, it's going to be mostly active during the daylight hours. And so really just kind of providing some lighting at door locations really is the idea, and just downlights above the doors. Here's some photos actually from our structural engineer of trusses that are constructed to be able to be out in the weather. So just kind of give you an idea of what those would look like. Next slide, please. We have a typical wall section. Just for reference's sake, we will have a kind of concrete curb at the entire perimeter of the building to give some durability to the structure long term. Next slide, please. Is there another one? Dan, I wasn't sure if you were able to get, we sent over last minute some views. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. I apologize for the late the late notice on that, but
it's all right. Glad we could still get
so
them
this
up.
is
Just real quick, just wanted to jump in. Just wanted to note Christopher Persons has joined us, so he'll be making, can make comments, motions, all that too. So welcome.
Yes, apologize for being late.
That's right. All right.
So again, this is just not, we're not fully rendered out here, but for a massing study, just to kind of show you, this is what it would look like during this first phase of construction without that glass enclosure on the corner. So you can really see it's just an extension of that covered plaza space, if you will. Okay, I think that's all that we have for the presentation. If anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to address them.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about several things. Is the maybe we could go back to your material choices page to talk about the siding and Dan, could you zoom in on those two siding choices? You've got two. So anything that's black on the rendering is the sort of more standard equal rib panel, and then the lighter gray stuff is, these are as shown in the rendering. Is that the idea?
Yeah,
Lighter.
it'll be a lighter color, and then it'll be kind of a wider panel.
It's hard to tell from the coloration or lack thereof on the sample board. What about the next to it? You said the roofing material is all going to be charcoal gray.
Yep. So the way the roof is constructed, it kind of, even though the building has kind of two masses to it, if you will, the roof is continuous, so they're going to carry the same roofing color throughout the entire roof.
And so the underside of the roof deck is exposed everywhere. Is that also correct?
Yeah, inside the building, there'll be, I'm sure, some areas that we're going to have, suspended ceilings in the kitchen area and things like that. But for the exterior, yes, the roof deck is going to be exposed.
So what is the roof deck material? Your picture kind of looks like it's a board kind of product. Can you tell us it is?
Yeah, my intent, and we'll be working through the details with the structural engineer, but my intent is to do a marine grade plywood for the roof deck material. So it will have the ability to stand up the adhesive holding the board together will be suitable for that exposure. And then again, we will be putting that sealer product on it as well.
All right, I'm not, there's different grades of marine plywood. Are you gonna specify a grade that doesn't allow too many knots and things like that?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. And then, so you have it looks like from your wall section that you have some insulation material on top of the roof deck?
Yeah, it'll be a rigid roof insulation above. Again, just because of kind of the roof being exposed in the market hall and things, I didn't want to have to deal with putting like a bad insulation or something below. So we'll do the entire required insulation above the roof deck.
All right, and I guess the last thing I wanted to touch on was the lighting fixtures that you were talking about, and you said that's the light up. Are those boxes, do they have up and down light, or is it strictly a down light?
We're going to do just down light for those. Was the intent.
I think it might be nice to add an uplight feature because you've got that big cavity with the exposed roof. I think that would brighten the place up more at night because it'll just look like a cavity if it's not lit. So I guess I would prefer to see, or if that fixture doesn't come with an uplight component, adding something to fill that cavity, I think would be a nice look at night.
Okay, we can definitely accommodate that. I'm sure that we can find a fixture that's comparable that would have an uplight component as well.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for that, Magdalena. Anyone else with any comments and questions?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the phasing. So, do you have an idea? I know this all depends on fundraising, but is there a timeline on when we think the second phase might occur?
I'll let Patrick weigh in on that.
Sure. Our hope is, I would say, early 2025.
Awesome. And then when is the first phase scheduled to open?
I think depends on how these processes go, but in terms of fundraising and working with our engineering team and with Maggie and her team, our great hope is that we're breaking ground this calendar year with utilities foundation, and then next year we will have the outside exterior up by October 2024, with then the phase 2 looking at summer or fall 2025.
Gotcha. Thank you. Well, I guess I do have one more. Sorry, I guess I do have one more question. So one of the discussion points last time was related to setbacks and property lines and things like that. Has there been any further clarification on what that is, or how it may impact the positioning of the building?
Yes, we were able to actually, Patrick got the civil engineer kind of on board, and we were able to confirm the property line location. And then I also worked with the zoning department, and there was actually an error on the the GIS online. And so it's not actually a 10-foot setback, it's only 5. And then the site property line moved in the right direction. So we were actually able to put the building exactly where we wanted to with no issue. So it was a good news week when we got that.
No, that's great. Awesome. Yep. I'm done now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have, I think, 3 questions on materiality. If you could go to one of the renderings, probably just from the south would be the easiest. Yeah, right here is fine. So the wood material, so the underside of the deck, the trusses, and then the banding shown about 2/3 of the way up. The deck itself being marine grade plywood, and then the truss. I'm kind of guessing here, but I'm assuming those are SPF, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that, and then the banding, what material is the band going to be? Is it pine or is it some other species?
I guess in that exposure, I would probably be pretty hesitant to put pine there.
Right.
If that's what you're getting at.
Yeah. So
I agree that I think is going to be not an ideal exposure. And obviously we'd be flashing that to protect the top edge. Sorry.
yeah. So all that said, if that's all going to have the same sealer product put on it,
yeah.
and assuming it's a transparent sealer, getting all of those 3 wood products to look the same is going to be quite challenging. So I don't know if it needs to be a semi-transparent sealer product, or just something that some greater thought put into making these 3 different wood species look a little bit more cohesive, but still maintaining the character of the wood grain. And perhaps it's the wood band color isn't wood. It's something that's a little bit more durable and resilient to direct exposure. Especially when juxtaposed against the aluminum mullions, both above and below it. I don't think that'll take away from the form you've created here and the 2 objects, the light and the dark. That's the first comment. The second comment would be, it looks like you're taking the aluminum mullion to grade with without kind of any sort of concrete, masonry, stone, water table. That's a little concerning for kind of longevity. I think it might make a little more sense to treat that with a little bit of protection so that has a little bit of a longer lifespan. And then if we go to the elevation that's directly from the south, just looking at this.
Which one?
The first, yeah, this one. Just looking at this head on, I think the object to the right, the darker mullions, I think, conflict a little bit with the massing. I think those, if they were to lighten up a little bit, it just lets that form read a little bit stronger against the void in the middle and then the glass object to the left. I think that would let that read a little bit stronger, even understanding that it's prep behind it. Those are my only 3 comments. Yeah.
Do like a clear anodized window in that in that bay or something like that. Yeah, I think to your point about the base on the glass box, I think that's partially just a rendering issue. I would see we're doing a concrete curb on the whole rest of the building, and I would see maintaining that throughout there for consistency's sake and, like you said, durability. I think, which we'll have to just work out how to phase that. But if we're putting a fence there on top, we could put the curb now, and it wouldn't be a trip hazard or something like that. So
okay, yeah. Other than that, I think this is really nice. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate your feedback. That's all very thoughtful.
Any other comments or questions from committee members? Well, I guess not. So would someone care to make a motion then?
Sure, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve as presented with consideration for a change to the window in the bay that's sided in the white aluminum. Did I catch all that?
And then I think the wood species and finish of the banding, the trusses, and the underside of the roof.
consideration for a durable wood species on the banding and perhaps a semi-transparent protective coating to help the wood to match. Yes?
Yes, I think you got everything.
All right.
All right, would anyone care to second that motion?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
All right,
Who was that? Chris? Or which Chris?
the double.
Rock, paper,
I'll give
scissors,
it. I'll give it to the other. I'll give it to the other Chris this time.
All right. Fair enough. Very, very magnanimous of you.
Please call the roll, Dan.
All right. Ms. Lamb,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci,
Yes.
Mr. Persons.
Yes.
Looks like Phil still isn't here. So, and Mr. Wall.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
great. Well, thank you all for your presentation. Good luck. And we're ready to move to the next item. Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have case OC 23-40, 1448 West 45th Street. Mimi Elliott is here. She's the property owner. She's looking to install a fence. This was tabled on your August 3rd meeting, so we'll need to untable it before we proceed. But yeah, I guess I can give the zoning report after Mimi walks through her presentation.
Great. Would somebody care to untable this item? Make a motion.
Sure, I'll move to untable.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. Please call the roll, Dan.
All right, Mr. Frendorf,
Yes.
Ms. Lamb,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci,
Yes.
Mr. Persons,
Yes.
and Mr. Wall.
Yes.
Share the motion to untable passes unanimously. So yeah, Mimi, if you just want to walk through your presentation, I've got your images up so I can
Right.
go through them as you talk.
Is that the first image?
That's the first one in this presentation. So it's
Okay. What you're seeing in this image is the interior lot line that divides to the north, which would be the left of the blue line. My Clinton terraces 144503 through 11 West or Clinton. And then to the right side of the blue line, the property line that changes the fencing at that point, heading south towards 1448 West 45th Street. This is the current existing fence that will be changed from the blue line to the right. You'll see that it comes out about 42 inches into the setback area of the 1448 Ranch home. And that will change to flush with 1448 West 45th Street at the setback. This is the material from the front view. You won't see those posts sticking out. It just describes the visual. It's, as you can see, 1 by 6 by 12 cedar fence boards staggered on 4 by 4 cedar posts, may end up being womanized actually, posts, positioned 6 feet apart on center. Again, this is now from the front of the structure. This is the very edge of your screen. You'll see the garage door. It presently goes out 42 inches off of the property line, which apparently creates some sort of frontage according to Mr. Bay with zoning. So that's not a problem for me to make it a flush fence to maintain the 6-foot height I'm not looking to go through a zoning change. I'm not looking to go with a 4-foot height because Ohio City is not exactly Disney World. And so to maintain the safety and security of the community and my future clients, we'll maintain that 6-foot height and make it flush with the structure to avoid any frontage issues. Next slide, please. So this will be your effective appearance of the fence. It may not be that light in color as it weathers. Anybody that's seen cedar weather over time, of course, it gets more like gray color. I will be coating it with a water protectant, something similar to Thompson's water seal, to delay that slow effect of the wood becoming more weathered. But initially, it'll look very much like what you're seeing there. Next slide, please. And this is the interior view where the posts will be visible. The posts, again, being 4x4 cedar or womanized wood. However, that's not going to be anything that you will see from the street. It is strictly on the rear side of the fence. I think that's it. You may see another slide. Oh, that's it. Okay.
And just to remind everyone, when we saw this 2 weeks ago, I had reported on some zoning issues raised by the zoning folks here in the planning department. I guess their determination was that since this property or since the fence technically extended into the front yard, even though there's not really a front yard on this property, it came in front of the front line of the house. So it was considered a front yard fence and needed to be at maximum 4 feet tall with 50% opacity. Ms. Elliott has pulled the fence back to the corner of the house, so it's not extending into the front yard. So by code, she's allowed the 6-foot opaque fence that she's presenting.
And so the, it's about 4-foot return back to the existing fence is going to remain. That's going to be the same construction as the long portion that you're rebuilding, correct?
Please state your question again, please.
When you put this new fence pushed back in line with the front of the garage, you've got the length, but then you've got the 4-foot return going back up to the part of the fence you're not changing, right? And that's going to be the same construction as the new fence, the horizontal board. Is that right?
The existing dog ear that's actually on the Clinton property is remaining, and there will be a return that'll probably follow exactly what I just presented to you as far as design, yes.
Okay. Well, I guess the one thing that I thought was missing in your proposal, I mean, it pretty much describes what you're doing, but you don't really have a site plan. It would be helpful to have a...
Dan, did you get that email? I sent it at 10:58.
It still has.
It's on the
still
permit
hasn't
portal.
come through.
That's odd. Okay, well, the permit portal, which is public record, shows the submitted plat that was done back in 22 for changing the property line for the ranch to square it off because it was on an angle, and it was squared off for 2 reasons: to make it more consistent with what, you know, a future owner would want to see, as well as avoiding having to have the fence in the interior lot go around trees. So it is shortened on the north side from 20 feet north of the garage to 12 feet 9 inches. And I added 10 feet to the back because there was only 6 feet rear footage behind this ranch. Main reason I did the entire, why I'm going through all of this is to add rear footage. Wow, I think you almost had it there.
Almost had it.
Oh, did it go away?
Yeah.
It did.
All right, hold on. Let me.
It is on the permit portal.
All right, yeah, that's where I just pulled it from. I'm just gonna have to share this one. It opened up in a different program, of course. So.
There you go.
Oh, great.
Okay, if you could zoom in then on that a little bit, Dan, so they can see basically the ranch, which is the, okay, yeah, there you go. So now you see the entire thing here. 4501, which is technically 4503, but we'll stick with 01 because that's what county says. 211 Clinton is parcel B. Parcel C is the change that I made in 22 to add rear footage. So I now have 15 feet 1 inch to the rear of the property versus the original 6 foot. Main reason for doing all that, everything that I've done thus far is to give this property a proper yard. Because when I sell the place, which is all preparatory for that, I want it to have a nice fenced yard apart from my other parcels, so they have privacy, etc. By the way, the vine court chain link will remain for the time being. It may change in the future, but presently it is not changing. Clearly, there's no fence needed for the rest of the front of the structure because it's right on the setback. It's right at the sidewalk. And you can see too where it puts in. Yep, your little arrow is doing exactly what it should. So yes, that section there, which will be moved back 42 inches to in line with the garage. And yes, there will be a transition that has to be made to meet up with the existing dogwood fence, dog-eared fence that's on the Clinton property. But otherwise, this particular parcel has no other changes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I guess I don't have any further questions. Anyone else? Any other committee members?
I think the only other question that I have is, will the direction of the fence be parallel to the street, or will it be in line with the section of the house? So will it go, due north, or will it follow the street line like it does today?
You mean cut off more of, make it a greater setback north than it is south?
No, I guess my question is, Dan, can you bring up the site plan again?
Yeah, I jumped the gun putting it away.
Yeah, I anticipate following the setback on the same angle. It's only setback parallel to the structure. My intent is to have the equal amount of footage setback from the front of the fence to the back to the end of the fence, north and south.
Okay. That sounds good. Yeah, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yep. And I intend to have, basically it's just going to be landscaped in front with, native grasses and that type of thing.
I have one quick question or clarification. When you were doing the presentation, you had said that you wanted to keep the privacy for your clients. Is this use changing, or did you mean like your tenants?
There's presently a tenant in the property, client, meaning I'm also a licensed realtor and I intend to sell the property. So in that case, the client would be a purchaser. So
okay, I just wanted to clarify if this was a business use, but it's
no, it's
okay.
residential.
All right. Okay, thank you.
All right, barring any additional questions, would anyone care to make a motion?
I will move to approve as presented.
All right, second?
Thank you, Alex. Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Mr. Frendorf,
Yes.
Ms. Lamb,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci,
Yes.
Mr. Persons,
Yes.
and Mr. Wall.
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. I'll handle this one administratively, so you don't have to come to Landmarks Commission or anything. So yeah, we'll follow up with next steps. But if you have a pending permit, I'll take care of that. But
No, I
yeah,
wasn't going to pull the permit till I got approval from this committee.
Okay.
So thank you very much for your time, folks.
all right, thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
Next up, we have case OC 23-42, signage for proof at 4116 Lorraine Avenue. We saw the storefront renovation a few weeks, or I guess a few months ago, or a few meetings ago, we'll say. And now they're coming back for signage from Signature Sign. We have the illustrious James Vasey here. So James, if you want to walk us through your presentation, just let me know when you want me to advance slides.
Good morning. So obviously I'm here to get approval for new signage for the Proof Craft Barbecue. These are going to be aluminum fabricated letters, backlit with amber LEDs. So it'll be set. It's a 3-inch deep letter, so it doesn't stick out as much. So it's a nice. I like that look of that letter. Obviously halo lit, so during the day it'll appear black. At night, the letters will have the nice amber hue around them. There are some. Let's see here. The drop shadow and the stars on those will actually be 1/8-inch aluminum, so they will not light up at night. It's just during the day you'll see that to give that a nice effect. Yeah, other than that, if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them as best I can.
I noticed in the renderings that it calls for mounting into the brick frieze. Can you adjust that language so that it's going through the mortar joint?
Yes.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Okay.
So those letters are all individually pin mounted. There's not a raceway or anything connected.
No, they're individually mounted letters. Yes.
All right, my colleagues being silent, so would anyone care to make a motion?
I'll move to approve as presented with Margaret's condition that it be mounted into the mortar joints.
Thank you, Alex. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Margaret. Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Mr. Frondorf,
Yes.
Ms. Land,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci.
Yes, sorry.
That's right. Mr. Persons
Yes.
and Mr. Wall.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, board.
All right, thanks, James.
Yep.
All right. Next up, we have case OC 23-43. It's the old Royal Castle at 1433 West 25th Street. We have Nate Lull here, I guess representing OCI and the port, pursuing demolition of the property. He'll explain why. We had a site visit a couple days ago. I know Doug was able to join us. I don't know that anyone else from the local committee was there, but we had a couple Landmarks Commission members there as well. So we did a little walkthrough, and it's an interesting building, but I'll let Nate get into it. So
Dan, as this is being presented by OCI, I will also recuse on this project.
all right, thank you.
I also have to recuse. Dan.
All right, let me see if I can figure out how to put you guys in the timeout.
See you later.
Hey, Dan, can I just listen in even though I'm muted and my video's off?
Yeah, I think if you're muted with the video off, that's fine. It's no different than live stream. So
I'll do the same so that you don't have to worry about the waiting room thing.
okay, thank you. I just figured it out. All right.
Good morning, everybody. Nate Lowell from Ohio City Incorporated, presenting the demolition plan for 1433 West 25th Street on behalf of the property owner and the Port of Cleveland. Next slide. This is just a letter stating that we are able to represent the property owner on this demolition. Next slide. So the location, you can see here, we are at the corner of West 25th Street and Detroit Avenue, right as Detroit turns into Superior Bridge. Those X marks are just other buildings that have been demolished as part of the ongoing Irishtown Bend Stabilization and Park project. Next slide. So a little bit of history that we could find about the building. It was originally constructed in approximately 1950 as a car sales facility in the Art Moderne style. It was converted to a Royal Castle restaurant sometime in 1956. Was that, I believe, until about sometime in the 1970s. And then eventually was converted to some sort of facility for CMHA up until about 2002. So the property has been vacant since 2002, according to the records that we found. Next slide. Just some more context. These photos are a little bit old, but so again, we're on West 25th Street. You can see the building in those top two photos. And then the bottom two photos, bottom left, St. Malachy Center is, and church is on the right there. And then across the street is Forest City Bank building, as well as the Corridor, which is a recent development in the neighborhood. Next slide. So here are some photos of the existing building and its current condition. Yeah, next slide. So in terms of the phasing for the demolition, the port would like to demolish the back half of the building immediately in order to begin stabilization, which is scheduled to commence, I believe, in a few weeks. The front half of the building is going to remain. That's marked by phase 2 there until a billboard relocation can be permitted and approved by the city of Cleveland. And then when the billboard is relocated, the remaining half of the front building will be demolished. We're presenting for full demolition and full approval of the full approval of the entire building, but noted that it will be done in phases. Next slide. So this slide just kind of shows the technical aspects of how the demolition will be carried out. I believe we have Brian Selleck from Wade Trim here. If there's any questions speaking to the technical side of the demolition, I believe he can answer those. Next slide. So this just really shows the slope stabilization that has to occur here. You can see in the red, those are areas with greater slope challenges. And that building is kind of in the bottom left corner, right above where it says West 25th Street. So it's notable that there's some very serious hillside deficiencies here. Next slide. Lastly, this is from the Irishtown Bend Park Vision plan update in 2021. These plans, I believe, have been publicly available for several years now. So it shows that there's always been a plan to have some sort of building there, but that is a separate, that'll be a separate review process from today's approval. So we'll be coming back in the future for some sort of new structure at the near the same location that this demolition will take place. And I believe that's it. So any questions anybody has, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Nate. I have a couple of questions. First one is there you said there's a potential start date in a few weeks to demolish the back and start the stabilization. Is there a rough timeline for how long the stabilization project is expected to take?
Yes, Linda from the port can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 18 to 24 months approximately.
Yeah, I would go with 24 to 30 months, but close.
And since the top of the hill at Franklin there is within that zone, or if anybody's driven the hill knows, does that mean Franklin's going to be closed for most of that period of time?
Yes, Franklin will be closed, and when it reopens, it will be realigned with the Franklin Boulevard across West 25th.
Okay, great. And then I want to talk about the billboard for a minute. I've got a couple of questions. When you say billboard relocation, is that something that's being negotiated between the port and the billboard company to find another home for this sign?
No, actually, the port is not involved in the relocation of the billboard. I believe that is between the owner and the city.
Owner meaning the seller of the property?
Correct.
Or okay, so Nate, Ohio City is OCI participating in any of this billboard relocation? When I hear relocation, I say, gosh, where the heck would that be? You know, I know it's extraordinarily complex to deal with these billboard companies. I've had buildings that had billboards we try to get rid of, and they have virtually ironclad leases, so it's very hard to work with. Is that something you and OCI are trying to facilitate?
Yes, so we're actively involved in those conversations between the current property owner, who also owns the billboard, and the city of Cleveland. So we are actively involved in those conversations. And once a final location is determined for the billboard relocation, that'll allow us to proceed with demolishing the front half of the building as well.
So
just to be
discuss any possible are there locations under discussion right now? I mean, I'm concerned about what the disposition.
Yeah, Doug, this is Greg Peckham at Land Studio. I've been working with Nate and OCI and others on this. There are the settlement agreement with the property owner requires 3 billboard in completely different sites. One of them has been permitted already, and number 2 and 3 are sites. Second site has been identified, and they're just kind of working through the kinks of making sure that it meets all the different requirements. So that one's pretty close. And then the third one is they're still doing research to find a third location. But so it's a requirement of the settlement, and therefore the city is extra motivated to make sure that they figure out how to find proper locations that are none of the ones are even kind of remotely even close to this location.
So is this a 3 for 1 deal? They need 3 billboards in compensation for this one? Is that what I'm understanding? 3 locations, they're going to get 3 billboards to substitute for this one?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and each of those new locations will have to go through their own city approval process. So if it's in the landmark district, landmarks would have to approve it. If it's in a planning design review area, planning would look at it. So they're all kind of completely separate issues. I guess the good news being that the what's that?
If it's not in our jurisdiction area, we won't see it.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. All right, thank you guys for clarifying that. Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, do we have a timeline for when the phase 2 of the building will come down? meaning, do you have a timeline of when those new billboards will go up?
Not yet. Again, as soon as the second and third location are identified, we'll be able to begin moving on, the necessary procedures to demolish the front half of the building.
Seems like an extraordinary expense to take down part of the building, then do work to resupport, and then only to tear that building down again. Only an observation, but.
Yeah, I'll just respond to that it's critical that we get this hillside stabilized, and the details of the billboard are being worked out, and we don't want to delay stabilizing that hillside.
Understood and appreciate that. So as quickly as a turnaround, it would be beneficial for all involved.
Yeah, I guess that I can report that from visiting the building the other day, that there seems to be a pretty continuous masonry wall along that line that you could cut free the back portion of the building without creating a lot of extra stabilization issues for the front portion of the building. At least that's what it seemed on visual inspection. So
it seems like the phase one area is an addition. So kind of phase two was originally built to stand on its own, and then so yeah, I think it could, hopefully without too much effort, be stable with the removal of phase one.
Yeah, that's
and then. Was there any study of keeping the existing phase two, what's outlined as phase two portion of the building, and incorporating that into the overall park design? As was noted, there's another building that's planned for within sort of this area, but just wanted to understand if there was any discussion or thought about keeping the existing sort of front portion.
Yeah, there has been a lot of conversation about that in the past, and I can say for a couple of different reasons that was determined by the project partners to be infeasible. The cost of potentially having to create a retaining wall around that building would add potentially millions of dollars to any project cost. The building itself, while not in terrible shape, is still, it would be pretty costly to renovate as well. And then it's also, I think it's about almost 5,500 square feet, and that's a pretty large building to try to get a retailer in there. And the other aspect of it is the building has been vacant for 20 something years, probably indicating that its useful life is beyond itself. And we'd like to eventually, as part of the project, build a new building there.
Is there an understanding?
Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Is there an understanding based on the limits of the cut and fill diagram of where the construction fencing would be installed along West 25th? Is that going to be right up to the sidewalk? And so phase 1 and 2 would on day 1 be within the bounds of the construction fencing, or would phase 2 be outside of the construction fence, or would the construction fence be, say, 30 feet off of West 25th? Or is that going to be for the next potentially 30 months, have a construction fence right on West 25th?
So the intent right now is we're still working with the contractor to determine the best location for that fence and to secure the site. So that is not yet been determined.
Okay.
Oh, Big Savage. Okay, all right. Where's the wall?
I was not able to join the site visit. Was there any material that was determined to be worth salvage attempt or anything, unique within the building?
No, there are some slightly interesting features that, there was an area that they took let's see, I think when they created the burger place, you could tell there was an area that had been walled off. So there's the front portion, which turns out to be pretty small. That was actually the hamburger place. And then directly behind there, there's a large room which was fully ceramic tiled with this like 1950s green ceramic tile up the walls and so forth. That looks like maybe it was some sort of food service area, cooking kitchen of some kind, but all the equipment was gone, so there was no way to tell. And there was an area of, I would say, very unusual suspended ceiling, and only unusual. And instead of 2x4 panels, they were like 2 foot by 8 foot panels. But it wasn't complete. It was just like a leftover, and I don't think that was significant enough to say anything about. The second floor was there were no particularly exciting features about the second floor. So it's a pretty basic building. I mean, and as pointed out before, the exterior could be quite handsome if restored, but after viewing it, the interior, I agree, it would be quite costly to try to restore that to any of its original character successfully.
Yeah, I guess understanding that there's these phases and a lot of unknown timelines here, I would be more inclined at this point to consider approving phase 1, but ask to see these financial studies of the cost for reuse of some of that or all of that facade in a new building. I don't think that just saying because a building's been vacant for 20 years that justifies taking it down. Speaking that my office is in a building that was vacant for 20 years and then fully restored. I guess I would like to understand a little bit more the specific challenges to the reuse of that facade.
Dan, can you go to the slide that shows the park plan? Another challenge that we talked about, and I talked about this with the folks who were able to make it out to the site visit Tuesday, is that the main entry point off of West 25th and Detroit, because of the because of the slope of the hillside, that this building basically dissects where the only ADA compliant access can be guaranteed on West 25th in Detroit. That's an incredibly important thing for a future park, to have that type of access at that corner, and this building basically dissects it. So really, when we're looking forward at bringing a new building down the line, that's one of the considerations that has to be made. And for reusing this building, it would require a lot of studies and a lot of new funds to be able to move where these paths are going through. I know there's plans for bike lanes on West 25th as part of the 25 Connects plan. So this corner is going to be seeing a lot of change in the next few years potentially. And we just feel like it's really infeasible to try to save this building given everything that's been moving. And again, with the ADA compliance stuff, it's not able to be done, unfortunately.
I can respect that. I just guess you even say potentially. So I would like to understand specifics to timeline, new design. We're really not supposed to approve demolition without seeing exactly what is going to take place on the site afterwards.
Understood, and we can we can work on that. But I think conceptually, at a conceptual level, I think it's we know that there's going to be a building roughly about 3,000 square foot, 3,500 square foot on this site in the future. But again, the location of the current building just presents real challenges to reusing it and incorporating it successfully into the park plan.
I think what would be helpful is, if there was at least an overlay or an understanding of where that existing building lives on the new site plan, to see sort of how its location impacts what can be done in that area. I appreciate the commentary also about sort of, you know, locating sort of ADA ramping and all of that, but it's hard to understand kind of where the existing building sits in relation to those critical site components. I can imagine, you know, generally looking at this kind of where it sits, you know, based on looking at the, you know, Google Maps, but in order to I think really understand sort of how this impacts, I think it would be really helpful to see that on a site plan.
So I can speak to that on behalf of the park project. So we will be coming to this body as well as planning and landmarks for a complete overview and you know, final concept approval for the park plan. That will be what you're requesting for the building will be directly addressed in that. And I just do want to kind of reiterate what Nate and Linda are saying, is that because of the location of the building and everything is driven by the engineering of the stabilization. So we can't move a path. The port tells us here's where a path can go, because it's all about stabilization. So the design of the park and every aspect of it is derived first and foremost from the stability issues and how they need to solve that from an engineering standpoint. So we really can't move these buildings around sort of arbitrarily, or even pathways for that matter. They are really in response to the grading plan that is necessary to stabilize the hillside.
Are phase 1 and phase 2 required to be removed in order to properly stabilize this hillside? It appears I can't quite tell from this plan. Just a clarification question.
So part of the reason that you know, we're talking about phasing also is phase 1 100% does have to be removed in order to begin stabilization work. I think you know, speaking for the project partners, we're comfortable with phase 2 being at a later date, because the port can then begin the work and we can work on finding you know, figuring out demolition for phase 2, but phase 1 absolutely has to be done to be in stabilization.
No, I just wanted to say too that, you know, to Greg, thank you for that additional context. That is important, you know, that to understand and reinforce that, you know, this whole project is stabilization of the hillside, and park and everything else is kind of secondary. So I do appreciate that additional context. So thank you for that.
Yes, that's very helpful. I understand and share the concerns about not having a more detailed plan, but understanding that this is an incredibly complex project with all the engineering required to stabilize the hillside. I feel comfortable in accepting the assessment that, you know, from an engineering point of view, this building can't stay there. And I'm sure that among all the engineering work that's been done, that's been carefully considered. As was pointed out, that in order to keep that front portion of the building, you need to establish a pretty serious retaining wall. And you know, I suppose if we wanted to be thorough about it, we asked to see some engineering soil reports or a more detailed view of you know, a section through that portion of the hill. But as Greg has stated, that's in process, and we are going to get a chance to review that. So anyway, I feel comfortable approving this portion of the demolition at this time, even though it haven't quite maybe met the standard of showing a final. I mean, we've often approved demolition just based on preliminary design for what's going to be there, not the final design. So I feel comfortable with this process.
I agree.
Anyone want to make a motion? Other than Doug?
I move to approve this as presented.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
All right, Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Ms. Lamb,
No.
Mr. Lozier, Mr. Persons,
Yes.
and Mr. Wall.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion to approve passes 3-1. Yes, so I think we have you guys scheduled for the upcoming landmarks meeting on the 24th. Nate will circle back after that, but you're approved and we'll move you on to landmarks.
Thank you. And just for clarity's sake, does that mean motion to approve as presented, meaning both phases are approved?
Yes, yeah, that was what you were presenting. So,
okay, great.
So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have case OC 23-44. It's the Pearl Street Wine Market and Cafe at 2523 Market Avenue. They would like to install some signage. So is this Brian Seelick? Are you here to present that? Am I pronouncing your name wrong?
No, I was just
No.
here for the Irish Town Bend.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I guess is there anyone here to present for the Pearl Street Wine Market and Cafe? All right, then I suppose we'll move on to case OC 23-46 Land Studio 2519 Detroit Avenue. This is just a concept, so I guess Greg, are you going to be walking us through your signage concept for your proposal?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
So this should, as Dan said, we're just want to get feedback on a concept before we move forward. We have engaged Signature Sign to work with us on this, but you know, we wanted to make sure that we got direction from this group before kind of setting them loose. So as some folks may know, for years we were located on West 25th Street in the PNC Bank building. We moved over to Detroit Avenue, right around the corner from the Royal Castle building, into the Snavely development just a few weeks ago. So we are kind of starting to get ourselves organized and need to get a little bit of signage for some visibility out on the street. So that's what I will show you. You can go to the next slide. So there we are, right at the corner, right next to Lecco Coffee, if folks are familiar with that. The property was kind of redeveloped as a co-working space, which fell victim to the pandemic. And so we're in the sort of middle bay of kind of 3 bays in this storefront. And it's a beautifully restored building. You can go to the next slide. So this is where we are. We occupy everything from the door just to the far left over to the end of the planters on the right hand side. You can see there's a series of sandstone columns that are really kind of architecturally really attractive and a nice feature of the sort of streetscape. And so we wanted to sort of honor that sort of historic, but do something sort of contemporary to kind of spice up the front. We currently have across the front of the building, we have sort of LAND in the 4 window bays, which are just a, you know, kind of a, you know, an acrylic application onto the windows. So that's temporary. But so we want to have something a little bit more substantial and permanent, but we want to kind of respect and sort of actually kind of play up the architecture. So go ahead to the next slide. So we were kind of looking for some precedents of examples of more historic types of things, but where people have kind of tried to elevate the architecture a little bit by bringing something contemporary or more, a little bit more modern to them. So these are just some kind of precedents and inspiration slides. You can go to the next slide. So real simple, this is what we're looking at, is basically a fabricated aluminum kind of little like jacket that surrounds the the existing sandstone column. It would be, hold on, let me get up my my notes on it exactly. But obviously you can tell the idea is very much about trying to really honor the historic features of the building, but bring something a little bit more contemporary to them. So it would have laser cut acrylic lettering that would be adhered to the aluminum surface. Be what we're looking at, and again, we're going to come back to you guys with more details if you give us the go ahead. So it'd be about 1/8 inch aluminum sheet and aluminum square tube, acrylic polyurethane catalytic epoxy paint. And in terms of the reason we want to kind of get some feedback from you guys is we are not intending to attach this into the building physically. So we're looking at different kind of strategies for the attachment, whether it's a combination of some sort of adhesive or a pinched kind of screw system that would basically pinch the stone to hold this in place. So if as we get into developing this a little bit further, we would come back to you guys, obviously, with exactly how we want to secure it to that column. But that's sort of the direction that we'd like to go. We don't think that this building needs sort of something really kind of extravagant hanging off the front of it. We love the idea of bringing something contemporary to this kind of historic facade, but doing it in a way that we think it will stand out, but we don't think it needs to sort of kind of scream at the streetscape that it's kind of just it. I think it would be more for sort of a novelty. So that's what we're looking to do, and wanted to just get feedback from this group before we move forward. Thank you.
This is non-illuminated, correct?
It is not, no.
Okay.
Well, I think this is a very creative idea, Greg. I think that my question as you're going through it was, how are you going to fasten this? So I think you've obviously got that under consideration, a way to not damage the building in any way. Do you intend to leave the 4 big letters in the glass storefront?
We did that only because we were having trouble. People were having trouble finding us. So, we kind of think they'll stay for a while. I think if we get this done, we'll see what that does in terms of visibility. We also have been playing around with the idea that, maybe we would, on an annual basis, commission a different local artist to do something in those windows to, kind of speak to what the organization does and keep, kind of activating the streetscape and those types of things. So it will stay for now, but it's definitely not a permanent solution. But I think if people like it and we can mix it up a little bit, it'd be nice sort of have a bit of a rotating kind of gallery along the streetscape.
No, I like those letters, and I think that this sign that you're proposing fits the space very well, but it doesn't have very much readability. People are looking for your location, so unless you say, hey, it's the pink sign on the sign.
Right.
Something. So I don't mind leaving the letters in there, and your plan of using those windows graphically in some way in the future. I think all of that's admirable.
Yeah, and the property owner, they're definitely encouraging us to do. I think when we came with this kind of idea to them, I think they thought, well, you know, is this big enough? And we thought, well, like, you know, I mean, the building it's a really beautiful building, and so we didn't, you know, like I said, we didn't feel like this needed to be something that like over the top. That like doing something like just really smart felt like a better solution than trying to be too loud.
Yes, I agree entirely. So I think this is a subtle yet bold way to identify yourselves.
Yeah, thank you.
That was going to be my question, Greg. Is it big enough? But I do really appreciate how sort of understated and you know, well thought out. How well thought out it is. I appreciate the, you know, working with the architecture of the sandstone. You know, highlighting the sort of the middle section of that. I think it's really clean. And I also do like the window sort of decals as well that really kind of announce that, you know, announce your space. It's just sort of the entirety of sort of the space that you have.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and I think, you know, like I said, this is sort of like a direction. If we get into taking it a little bit further, you know, obviously we're going to come back for a final review and approval. So, you know, we may adapt it. If we may, you know, kind of mock it up and say, oh, maybe it does need to be a little bit bigger or something like that. But, you know, right now this sort of feels right.
I think I would echo everyone's comments so far in terms of appropriateness and kind of the transitional nature of the aesthetic with the column design with the modern signage. In terms of mounting, I think, you know, like an aluminum Z-clip that's structurally siliconed to the signage and potentially the sandstone to avoid fasteners, I think could work and be successful and allow you the opportunity to avoid fastener holes and also the future removal and replacement, or, you know, any you know, issues related to that. And
yeah,
you know, it could provide you some standoff too if you wanted the shadow play behind the signage, which is why I asked if it was illuminated, because that would allow you, you know, potentially a half-inch standoff if you wanted to rake the column above and below.
Yeah. I appreciate the suggestion on the clips, because we hadn't, you know, like I said, we hadn't really, we were scratching our heads a little bit about exactly how that's going to go. But, you know, even having that as the Z clips as a suggestion, you know, that will help us in Signature Sign do some research to come back to you guys with.
Yeah.
And we did definitely, we've gone back and forth about the illuminating thing. Part of it's expense, part of it's then we're going to really get into drilling, you know, we're going to have to drill into this building.
You have to get
one
into
way
the
or
building.
another. And we've just kind of just been feeling like less is more, you know, with this.
Understood.
A little bit.
Yep. Yeah, and the Z clips being aluminum prevents galvanic action, and but, you know, ACM products do this day and night all the time. They don't allow exposed fasteners, so that's another place to reference for different fastening methods.
Cool. Thank you for that.
Yes.
I also just want to echo support. I think it meets the standards nicely. The idea of do no harm, and, you know, you can take it off and the building's there. So
yeah, thank you.
Great.
Okay. Well, we will come back to you guys, you know, probably pretty quickly with, you know, a more detailed, you know, drawing and how we propose to attach it to the building. But this is very helpful. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, Greg.
Okay. Good to see y'all.
You too.
Greg, sorry, I was muted and trying to get your attention. I was just going to say, when you do come back for final approval, if you do intend to keep that signage in the window, if you could have some details on that, you know, like have Bruce draw it up or something like that, and have that as your signage package, just so that everything can be permitted as once.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask you guys for one other idea that we have that we hadn't thrown in here yet? I don't know if folks have seen a project that we did years ago called the Edgewater Hill Bluebirds, and they're these beautiful kind of glass ceramic sculptures. They're about, I don't know, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 inches long. I'll send you guys a link in the chat. But we thought it might be kind of cool to figure out a way to have one of those somewhere over the doorway as a, you know, as a bit of a, you know, kind of just a little public art kind of beacon along the street. So I don't know if you guys, let me see if I can dig up a photo real quick while we're talking, but.
I'm picturing like the birdhouse in your soul nightlight. Is that not quite?
Hold on, here we go. Let me
I
see.
think that would be a nice touch. I would propose that.
Where the chat is in this thing. Well, anyway, if you Google Edgewater Hill Bluebirds, you'll get a picture that will pop up real. Oh, there's a chat. Sorry. There you go. Click that thing. We just thought, like, from a, you know, kind of a just one more kind of breadcrumb along the street might be a cool thing to do.
My computer won't let me.
If you click continue, it'll let you.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, gotcha. So you're thinking that would be in the transom window or projecting out above the doorway?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we don't quite have a great idea about exactly where it would go. We just thought, you know, it might just be another nice signifier of, you know, here's the entrance, and, you know, be another layer of kind of speaking to. So, you know, I think if you guys have suggestions about, there's not a whole lot of stuff that you can, you know, you can stick it on out there. And I think we'd want it to be obviously out of reach, but still visible. So anyway, maybe we will come up with some ideas if you guys would be receptive to this.
Yeah, maybe you can hang it from the soffit above or something like that.
Yeah, or see how it looks inside of the mortar in the brick band above.
Okay, so like right above the X where Dan had that cursor.
Yeah,
like
it
up
might
there
be.
somewhere.
It might be too high to you know, have found an impact, but it's worth study.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll
maybe instead of it sitting on a, you know, a standoff on a post, maybe you incorporate it into sort of sitting on top of the sign or something like that. Because it looks like so you're developing it, you know, in context. You know, it's on the telephone poles. You know, sitting on that surface. It's, you know, thinking about ways to, you know, how do you maybe incorporate it sitting on the building or sitting sort of on the sign.
Yeah.
Maybe it
Like,
needs
where would a bird perch?
Greg, I said maybe it needs a nest since it's home.
Yeah. We'll hang a big old reading nest right off the front of there. So, okay, if you guys are open to us exploring it, maybe when we come back the next time, maybe we'll have a couple, you know, kind of proposals and get some feedback from you guys on that as well.
All right, great.
Oh,
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So Dan, does that conclude our agenda, or did the missing person have somebody, the one we skipped over? Does anybody?
I don't see that anyone else showed up. So I guess, which is a little frustrating because it's one of those ridiculously simple, you know, simple projects. They're basically, but they took the sign down and they want to replace it. It's essentially a, you know, like a banner like the market sign that was there, just slightly different dimensions. So,
Dan, could we allow you to administratively approve it? I mean, everything we all would always ask is it mounted into the mortar joints? Does it appear appropriately placed? And is the scale right? And it appears to meet those criteria.
So this is one that we had intended on administratively approving because they initially said we're going to be reusing, you know, the original brackets, which were installed when the whatever the Flying Fig market was called, I can't remember, but they actually removed the brackets, so then they needed to do a reinstall, and they're not at the same heights. And my concern was this, 60 inches by 25 inches. That's almost like a 2-to-1 ratio, and that's not what's being shown here. So we were trying to get some sort of measured drawings or some more details out of them that would actually show us the, a realistic, scale and ratios and that sort of thing. And they wanted to move forward with this. So sometimes when I tell someone 100 times and they won't listen to me, it's easier just to let you guys, as like a decision body, say it, and then they tend to listen. So, I mean, I'm comfortable if I can get the details out of them to handle it administratively. If you guys are fine with the concept, like I said, I'm just a little concerned with how close it'll actually look to this. But it's going to be installed in that same area. The bottom, or I guess the top bracket used to be up here. It's just going to be lowered down to there, I think is what they're showing. So.
And they also have the height above the ground, their little Photoshop thing makes it
8
look like
feet.
the bottom is too low.
Yeah, and so, and I guess with this we could rely on, building and housing and permits, that whole process, plans, examination to, make sure that it was high enough up above the ground and that sort of thing to make sure it's code compliant. But it does, yeah, it's not the clearest proposal, but
Based on this discussion, can you ask the group to provide you with the necessary documentation that we're looking for?
we will
from the committee.
Yes, yeah, I was gonna say we can ask again, but maybe if I say it's at the request of the committee, maybe they'll be more willing to. Or if I say if the committee said if you can get me XYZ, then I can sign off. But yeah, we'll if you guys are comfortable with the concept, again, it's such a minimal. I mean, a banner is almost temporary, but yeah, if you guys are comfortable with that, I'm happy to through staff here, work it out and handle administratively.
That's good. That's good for me. I trust your judgment on that, Dan. And so if they're able to furnish you with that additional information, that's perfectly fine with that.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Well, yeah, I guess other than that, like I mentioned at the beginning, and now he's here, we have, Chris Persons joining the committee. So I don't know if any of you have worked together on various things in the past. Cleveland's not that big of a city, so that happens sometimes. But yeah, I would like to welcome him. He's happy to have him on board. I don't know if Christopher, you want to give a 30-second bio.
Yeah, glad to be here. I work at Bioloski, been there for about 7 or 8 years. Predominantly doing work right now on the east side, but I live on the west side on West Boulevard. So I'm very familiar with Ohio City. I've been in Cleveland since 2016. I got my architecture degree down in Kent, but I'm originally from Western New York State. So I'm a transplant, not a native lander. So do with that what you will. But yeah, so I'm excited to contribute and available for any questions or prodding for additional information as you will.
I think, Chris, you handle a lot of in your day job, a lot of new construction and
that's true.
That level of work. So we on staff and at the Landmarks Commission thought he'd be a good fit for this committee, just since we do see so much new construction, having that kind of expertise to help complement everybody else's areas of expertise. Yeah, we just thought he'd be a good addition. So I assume he's a Bills fan, so that's all good too.
Yes, well, welcome, Christopher, to our evolving group here, and I could see that you've had some, just sticking your toe in the water, you've had some insightful comments so far, so we look forward to more participation in the future.
Yeah, welcome.
Both.
All right, if there's nothing
Okay,
else,
well-
Doug, you can feel free to adjourn at your leisure.
During this meeting officially of the Ohio City Design Review Committee, and we will see you all next week, or 2 weeks from now, I hope, in good health and happy. So have a great day, everyone.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.